What's up guys, welcome back to Destiny Updates. Today I'll be covering this week's Bungie Weekly update, which has some new info and a bunch of badass screenshots. We'll also take a real brief look at last week's update while we're at it. Before we begin though, on Thursday they did release a Bungie podcast with some interesting info, which I will be covering soon. But in the meantime, if you'd like to listen through yourself, I'll leave a link below. It's about an hour long and is pretty entertaining. But let's get into the update. It begins with Deej recounting a playtesting session in which he went out on a strike with Pete Parsons, Bungie's COO, and OJ, Head of Business Development and Strategy. Their adventure took them to Mars, where they encountered some Cabal on the way to their strike. I'm not going to read the entire post, but the one thing that really stood out to me was the mention of the Cabal's mountainous tank. Deej says, "Cresting the first set of dunes, we saw our first Cabal milling about the gangway of their mountainous tank." Accompanying that story is this image here. Besides being an awesome screenshot of Mars and the Cabal, I believe this vehicle in the background must be the tank in question. We can see a large barrel-type firing mechanism up on the top, and the whole thing appears to hover. It looks pretty epic in my opinion. And then we also have this image here where we get another view of it. You can see the legs at an angle showing how it moves about, but the rest is rather blurry unfortunately. Another thing in this image though is this glowing thing dropping straight down. To me it looks like either something shot from orbit or maybe a mortar type thing. There's also a third image from this scene in which I believe we see that glowing shot exploding. If we look closely at the last one, we can see a pile of stuff stacked up and back, and then in this next one, we see the same stuff flying around from the explosion. Perhaps this could be a weapon shot from the Cabal tank? It seems possible. Although, the weapon does seem to be landing near the Cabal, not the Guardians. So maybe it's a Guardian ability? Something you can call in from your ship, perhaps? Again, not sure, but I think that would be really cool. Moving past that bit though, he goes on to quote various staff members' adventures in Destiny over their winter build. He also mentioned that every day their breakneck pace of development is interrupted with a Destiny playtesting session, because they figure that if they enjoy it, we will too. Now as for the quotes, they make for decent reading, but there's very little actual info, so I'm not going to read all of them off. I will quickly mention a couple of interesting things that are mentioned though. First, while exploring a moon base, they ran into some Fallen drilling for resources. The Fallen then came in waves to protect their mining equipment. And then the second one is that they received a bounty for killing a bunch of Fallen in a public event. I thought those were pretty interesting. Moving past that, they give us a ton of awesome screenshots, like the three I covered at the beginning. Now these aren't exactly new, they were all shown in the January issue of Game Informer last month, but we weren't allowed to share them then, because they were Game Informer exclusives. Now everyone can see them and they're in nice full HD. If you'd like to download any of these to use as wallpapers or whatever, then you need to go to the Destiny gallery on Bungie.net in order to get the high-res downloads. I'll leave a link to that below as well. I personally think this first one is a beautiful piece of art and currently have it as my desktop background. Now let's take a quick look at all of the others because I think they look awesome and there's actually some new stuff to show you guys in there. This one shows 2 Cabal Legionnaires, nothing special, but to the right there's some much smaller, odd-looking creature. I do wonder if this could be a Cabal Psion, since we've been told that they're much smaller and use their mind in combat. While the creature is a lot smaller and seems to be aligned with the Cabal, it's certainly not what I would have envisioned the Psion to look like. I really don't know. Moving on, here's the Mars exclusion zone at night, which looks awesome. It's also a great example of the day-night cycle in Destiny, since we have seen this during the day before. Next is this awesome looking environment, which is Vex controlled, as we'll see in a bit. After that is this scenic shot on Venus, which looks really cool, especially the background scenery with those erupting volcanoes. I want a scenic screenshot of just that background. Here's another part of that Vex-controlled location I showed a minute ago. Epic Hunter fighting some goblins. Then we have a Titan wearing this really interesting Vex-looking armor, probably the most unique and intriguing suit of armor I've seen. He's also in a pretty interesting setting. The signs make me think it's some kind of terminal or station, long since overgrown. At first I actually speculated this could be the swamps of old Chicago, since the signs are in English and there's water on the ground, but the title of the image says Venus, so that's interesting. Moving on, they go inside of that Vex-controlled area, fighting around some interesting looking mechanism. And then here is the Citadel, some kind of Vex stronghold that we know very little about. And then we go back to that Vex area, this time with one of the new Vex classes present. I believe this is the Vex Hydra, described as segmented machines that float through the air to attack. Also referenced as robotic centipedes, and it's worth noting that each of their segments has its own turret. Now that description doesn't immediately make me think of this guy here, but I think it does match up better than the Harpy, the other aerial Vex unit. All we've been told about them is that they fly rapidly in and out of a fight, occasionally pausing to open their shells, revealing a writhing mass of filaments before firing. The next image is in the same location, pretty cool looking, but it doesn't reveal anything new. After that is a shot we've basically seen before in the VGX trailer, but it's nice to have it in high res and actually see the details of that Vex teleport warp thing. Moving on to another exterior shot of that Vex location, we have a Minotaur about to melee this Titan. Considering how big he is, I wonder if it's a one-hit kill. There's also a purple ball of light or energy at their feet, possibly something about to explode. All that is quite cool, but the real exciting part in this one is that pair of super epic looking hobgoblins up on that ledge to the right. These guys are like the cousins of the weaker goblins. They look way more badass, and they have tails, which is like, you know, awesome. I think they're probably my favorite Vex unit so far. The final image is once again basically what we saw in the VGX trailer, still pretty cool though. Once again, I will link the gallery of these in the description below, so if you want to download any, it's there. Also, let me know in the comments which image out of all of these is your favorite. Mine is probably that first image of Mars, just because it's so elegant and cinematic looking. Anyways, getting to the end, there's a brief mail sack, as always. First question comes from Duquesne23, who says, "Can I give Bungie a huge when I come to PAX?" Deej replies, "What?" On to the more serious questions. Handy Sabe basically asks if someone finds a really good weapon and tells everyone how to get it, will everyone have the same weapon? Deej says that the thing about really good weapons is that there are a lot of them. While there will always be some crowd favorites, overall they expect it to be pretty diverse. Moving on, Radar117 asks if we can kill other guys in the open world area. Deej answers by essentially saying, if you meant AI, then sure. If you meant other players, then no. You'll have to go into specific activities to be able to kill other players. They don't want us turning our guns onto each other on the field. There's already enough bad guys as it is. Next up, Gunrunner48 asks if we're gonna get another Destiny drawing board anytime soon. Deej says yes, soon. It's high time we return to the drawing board. But then he says, don't expect any more guns. The rest of the armory will be a thing for you to discover. Stay tuned, we're about to propel the series into its next phase. So I thought that was pretty awesome to hear, can't wait to see what's coming next. Although it does sound like we're not really going to get any more weapons or info on weapons until the beta. Finally, Siren asks if there will be more community playdates to play with Bungie. Deej says that the only thing better than playing a game you love with the people who made it is playing a game that you made with the people who love it. So in short, yes, they will be playing with the community, with the ride-alongs returning. So that's of course cool to hear. That brings us to the end of this week's update. I was quite happy with this one. Being able to talk about and analyze those screenshots was really cool. Real quick before I end this though, I want to briefly mention a couple of things of interest from last week's update. First is this awesome picture of a hunter on Mars, just chilling after a fight. This does make me wonder if there's social areas on other planets, or if we'll be able to sit down and such once we've cleared an area of enemies. Regardless, it's pretty cool. Then there's some beta FAQs. I've pretty much talked about all of these at some point or another though, so I'm not going to cover all of them. The one comment I myself really get a lot though is, I pre-ordered but never got my code. Deej says, first of all, they're terribly sorry about that, but unfortunately your retailer needs to deal with that. They can't actually help. He says that as long as your retailer is on the list of official partners, then it's their job to get you a code. That's why they're on the list. Your best bet is just to contact them. And then in the mail sack, Hylabos asks, who is the director? Which you may remember hearing a mention of in my last weekly update video. Deej says that the director is not a who, it's a what. Think of it as a guide. Think of it as an oracle. It's equal parts war plan and treasure map. I'm not too sure what to make of that. The last time we heard of the director, I was pretty confident it was a person, but now, I guess not? I don't know. Then Bad Account asks if it will help to have variety in your Fireteam, as in multiple classes. Deej says it's up to you. He doesn't give out any specifics, but he does say that each Guardian has specific talent that makes them dangerous. When you combine those talents, something wonderful happens. Essentially saying that it does help to balance things out with variety. But then he also says that of course, they will let you venture out into the wild with a Titans only club if you insist. So it is possible. Those are the most noteworthy things from the last update. As you can see, it wasn't a whole lot, hence why I hadn't made a dedicated video for it. But that said, this video turned out quite long and in-depth with all of those screenshots, so I really hope you enjoyed. If you did, a like is of course very nice and helps out a lot. If this could pass 1,000, that'd be awesome. Lately, my really big videos have been passing 2,000 likes, which is just unbelievably awesome. I really appreciate it, and it helps those videos get higher rankings in search results, so thank you very much. It means a lot. And also, the channel recently passed 35,000 subscribers, which is pretty crazy, so thanks a ton for that too. Remember that you can find links to the screenshots, the podcast, and the weekly updates in the description below. That's all for this video though. Thanks so much for watching, as always, and I'll see you in the next update.